Hello and welcome back to another episode of my collection. Today we're going to visit Porte Saint Louis in Ville de Quebec, Quebec City, circa 1759. This episode could be seen concurrently with episode 19. The port or gate is an entry point into the old city of Quebec, built by the French administration of New France and was integrated into the defensive fortifications of the city. Outside the city walls is ultimately where the English forces of General James Wolfe were confronted by the forces of New France under the command of the Marquis de Montcalm at the Plains of Abraham on September 13, 1759. This battle ultimately saw both men mortally wounded and the surrender of Quebec to the English forces. The Porte Saint Louis still stands, and while no longer gated, is a reminder of Quebec's history and part of its UNESCO World Heritage Site. My collection includes pieces from various makers which have done sets related to the French and Indian Wars in North America. And here I'm referring to William Britton's, John Jenkins, and Tradition of London. If you like the video, hit the like and subscribe buttons. We'll start with the Porte Saint Louis. This piece is from John Jenkins' design, number QBGATE. I purchased it in late 2010 from a store in Montreal called D'Artagnan, which sold John Jenkins, King and Country, and Spirit of the Empire figures. Sadly, it no longer is in business. The gate measures 11.5 inches by 7.5 inches. The gate doors swing inward, and the piece itself is made of polyresin or stone resin. It's quite heavy at 3 pounds 13 ounces. It's a good representation of the original gate. Now compare the Jenkins gate to this photo taken in 1872. Now this photo I took of the gate from the exterior of the wall in 2022, 150 years later. Clearly the gate has been expanded and modified over that period of time to accommodate for the flow of traffic into the old city. I've blended in the Tradition of London figures with the Britons and a couple of figures I bought at La Citadelle in Quebec City last summer. As you can see, the emphasis is on the forces of New France prior to the Battle of the Plains of Abraham. The French artillery is Tradition set number 0617, which I purchased from the store when it was on Shepherd Street in London. When I bought it, I wasn't sure it was really what I was looking for. You see, I thought the forces of New France would have had something more akin to wheeled artillery. But the salesperson assured me that in New France, naval cannons were what they had, and he was right. The French emphasis on fortifications like those of Quebec and Louisbourg, coupled with the French Admiralty's responsibilities for the defense of New France, made naval cannons de rigueur at both locations. I would add that if you view episode 16, Artillery Part 2, you will see a photo of reenactors at Louisbourg Fortress, practically identical to this Tradition set. The uniforms and colors are dead on. The set of French infantry, number 606, I also bought on another occasion from Tradition. Based on the uniform, you could speculate that this is Le Régiment de Berne. I could say with more certainty exactly what regiment this is if Tradition had made a little more effort. You see, you note that one of the figures is holding a regimental flag. And you'd think that Tradition could have just changed the coloring a bit, and then we could decide one way or the other which regiment it was. The Britons figures span over a decade. Some were made during the years that Britons was under first gear, and of course the current ones are not. Most of these I have purchased from Scott Dummett Presents, while others I bought at last year's Chicago show from Michigan Toy Soldier, and others recently from an Ontario Model Soldier Society member. I'll try to match up the Britons figures with drawings from this book of French military uniforms in New France circa 1750. Now, I've included number 47014, which are French Volontaires Étrangers Louisbourg, simply to add more depth. Now, you'll notice that their coats appear light gray, and I think this is a more accurate color for their uniforms. Number 47015, French Compagnie d'Irlandais at Quebec. Now, I know it has the red jacket and all, and you might think that this is a British redcoat figure. It's not, but do take note of the green facings on this uniform. Again, probably a gesture to the Irish. Number 47039, Compagnie Franche de la Marine, drummer. Number 47040, French ensign with Compagnie Franche de la Marine, ensign with the colonel's color. This comes in at a whopping 4.7 ounces. Now, the flag is a real nice touch, but these flags really add weight to these figures. Number 47041, Compagnie Franche de la Marine, standing, make ready. Number 47042, Compagnie Franche de la Marine, officer. Number 47043, French ensign with Compagnie Franche de la Marine color. And this is the second flag, and again, 4.7 ounces, really heavy. Number 47044, Compagnie Franche de la Marine, standing firing. 47020, French Canadian militia in Capote, standing firing. And I think that was a nice attempt to provide the militia figure with local clothing and other gear, which is quite a contrast to the other figures. Number 47054, Compagnie Franche de la Marine, kneeling, make ready. Number 47055, Compagnie Franche de la Marine, kneeling, firing. Number 47056, Compagnie Franche de la Marine, officer number 2. This figure was available quite some time ago, and it does measure 54 millimeters in height. But when I look at the proportions to the other officer, it just seems a little bit off. I don't know if that's because he's got his cap off. I don't know. Number 43147, French Canadian private, Franche de la Marine. And take a look now at the picture that I have here, and you'll notice a dramatic difference between the two. The Britain's figure and the artist's illustration of Franche de la Marine in their uniform. Lastly is number 47038, Huron warrior, standing firing. Again, I draw your attention to the use of colors and detail on this figure. Whether it's accurate or not, I have no idea, but Britons put a lot of effort into this figure, like the others here. So overall, I think Britons did a reasonably good effort on creating a slice of the forces of New France. Did they get the uniforms exact? Here is a drawing of Le Régiment de Languedoc. Looks a lot like the Britons' Franche de la Marine. Now, here's a drawing of a drummer of Le Régiment de Roussillon, and he is wearing the King's small livery. And now the Britons figure. Looks pretty good. So while the painting of the figures is well done, I suppose you could quibble about the accuracy of the military uniforms. And perhaps it would have been nice if Britons had expanded the range of New France figures to include other regiments that served in the period during the French and Indian Wars. But I'll take what I can get. Now I have all the figures basically loitering outside the gate, and maybe some are engaged in musketry training as well. Well, maybe not all are loitering. Looks like a rotten apple in the figure of General Wolfe, who has insinuated himself into the scene, no doubt tired of the Royal Navy's fine cuisine. He's found a pathway up from the St. Lawrence River and is now being enticed by the smell of traditional French cooking. The final two pieces I purchased from Le Citadel in Quebec City, and these came in boxes marked Tin Soldier Collection, made in England. I don't recognize this maker, but anyhow, the first is the Marquis de Montcalm, and he certainly stands out. The second is identified as an officer of l'Hussard Regiment. If you want to learn more about the Citadel in Quebec City, check out episode 19, 3 Canadian Forts. And if you enjoyed the video, please hit the like and subscribe buttons. Until next time, keep collecting.